Our guest today is the sister of one of the most famous, beloved, and storied runners of all time, whose life was tragically cut short in the 1970s as he was preparing for the 1976 Olympics. She has been the guardian of his iconic legacy ever since. Welcome to the Motivation Show, Linda Prefontaine.
Thank you, Eli. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much. I'm a runner, and I've been running since the 1970s. In fact, I started my running
Wow.
watching the 1979 New York City Marathon and seeing this guy that you probably know pretty well, Bill Rogers, win the marathon.
I know him, but not well. But
Yep.
yes,
Yep, I know Bill had run in the early 70s along with Steve, and they were two of the preeminent long distance runners of
yes,
all time. And so
yes.
that kind of got me hooked. And then every day since I did that, I started going
Wow.
out, running a few blocks. And then, of course, I came back with my tongue hanging out, and I'm like, how am I going to ever run a marathon? You know?
That was
Um,
a hefty goal if that was your first one.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, in the early 1970s, your brother Steve Prefontaine was one of America's greatest long distance runners. And from
Yes.
73 to 75, he set American records at every distance from 2,000 to 10,000 meters, which was
Yes.
pretty incredible. He
Yes.
competed in the 1972 Olympics, and he was preparing for the 1976 Olympics with the Oregon Track Club. And, his career, or Steve's career, or Pre, as of course everybody
Yes.
fondly knows him, alongside other legends like Jim Ryan, who was the great miler, Frank Shorter, of course, who
Right.
won the Olympic marathon, and Bill Rogers, of course, who I just talked about, who won many New York City marathons and Boston marathons. They all generated, considerable media coverage, which
Right.
helped inspired the running boom. Really, the running boom, as far as I'm concerned, really started in the 1970s.
Correct.
Because like the New York City Marathon in 1970 only had like less than 200 runners, and it was
Oh,
running around
wow.
Central Park.
Wow.
And then all these great runners came along and inspired the masses. And what I was most interested in is you know, it's 50 years later, and
Correct.
people still talk about Pre a
Yeah.
lot, and
Yes.
most runners just fade into obscurity. Why is people still talking about Pre?
I think it's sort of multifaceted. I don't think you can say there's pick one thing that would describe why. So I think Nike has a lot to do with it. Um, he was their first public figure that promoted Nike shoes, and they have continued to promote him and tell his story. I think when you have a company that large, that is a huge influence. I think also coaches of his era who lived it, who can actually maybe have some personal stories, not just from what they read on social media or elsewhere. I think that has made a difference. I'm in the future, those coaches, because we're talking about dating back to the 70s, those people are now probably in their 70s or older. Some of them have passed away. So, as we age out, it'll be interesting how long, the interest continues. But I think, as far as Nike, there's certainly, there's also the movies and the book and, uh, with social media, you have access to everything, YouTube videos. And so it's a whole bunch of things that keep his story alive. And I'd like to think I'm in that group too.
Yeah. And, when I was running back in the 70s, I would, of course, read Runner's World, Running Times, whatever I can pick
Sure.
up and get a subscription to. And I got a subscription to all of them. And so what they talked about very often was Bill Bowerman, who was
Right.
Pre's coach. at the
He
university.
was the head coach at the University of Oregon, but he wasn't Steve's distance coach. That was Bill Dellinger,
Yes. So,
not Bill Bowerman.
so both
Sorry.
Bills, of course, are legendary figures.
Yes,
Um,
yes. But
and I,
Dellinger also, he won a bronze medal not that many years before Steve ran at Oregon. So he lived it.
yeah, not a bad thing to have a
No,
bronze medalist as your coach.
correct.
Uh,
Correct.
and so, in his 4 years at Oregon,
Now,
pre
first of all, you have to learn to say Oregon correctly.
yeah, that's what happens when you come from
It's
New
Oregon.
York,
Yeah, I
right?
know. Yeah, that's
I'll
right.
probably continue to say it wrong because I can't get that,
Okay, I
you
won't hold
take
it
the kid out
against
of New York, but you
you.
can't take the New York out of the
Yeah.
kid. So
Fair
forgive
enough.
me, I'm probably going to do this 5 more times. It might
Go
take me
ahead.
a week to get that right. But Pre never lost a race, which is crazy. A collegiate race at 3 miles, 5,000 meters, 6 miles, or 10,000 meters, and that really is remarkable. What do you attain that's kind of success to? How much do you think Bill Dellinger had in that, and how much do you think Pre had in that? Your
Um,
thoughts?
well, I think it's more Steve than anything. Um, I mean, you have to have two things to make a great runner. Well, maybe there's more than two, but you have to have the determination and the will
Hmm.
to put in all that work. Um, that is not going to happen unless you have that. And the competitive nature. If you're not into competing, it's not going to work. He had all of those things and competitive in everything because we competed growing up in board games and basketball, everything. So it wasn't just running that he was competitive at, it was everything that he did. And also, I mean, it does help to have good coaching, which is also why he went to Oregon, because at that time that was the best for distance runners, is to go to University of Oregon and train under Dellinger and Bowerman. So, but Bowerman was phasing out. I can't remember what year it was that Bowerman retired and Dellinger became the head coach, but um, it's several things together, not just, again, not just one thing.
Did Steve ever feel that he was sacrificing at some point, maybe too much? Because I once spoke to an Olympic ice dancer, and she said she
Oh,
trained 6 hours a day, like 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, and like,
right.
wow, that's giving up a lot, and that's a lot of sacrifice, and that's like daily.
Course. So ended up playing women's professional racquetball. I was competitive in tennis in high school and college, and then I switched to racquetball after I graduated. And so I trained, and it's not just running on the track. And for me, it wasn't just on the racquetball court, weightlifting, running, for endurance, and then training hours on the court. You do have to give up. You do have to sacrifice your life, a lot of your personal life, because you're spending so much of it training. Other things that you want to do, like I wanted to snow ski, but I didn't during those years because one bad fall, you could break your leg or break your ankle or so of course he sacrificed. He had to. Anybody I think at that level of competition that's your life. That is where you're spending all of your time. So yes, he did.
What was Steve like growing up? Was he always a great runner? Did he just like,
No, he didn't even start running until basically his freshman year in high school. Back then, during that time, which I'm assuming you're relating to, we were active. We didn't have all this stuff, social media, computer, none of that existed. So we spent a lot of time outside playing and competing and, a lot of neighborhood kids got together and played, and so that's what we did growing up. So, but he didn't start training until really his freshman year in high school when he went out for cross country.
Besides the fact that Steve wasn't a remarkable runner, what about his personality made him a media darling?
Well, that's another one of those questions that involves more than one answer. Um, I think he he was able to relate to the media and the public. He didn't put himself above everyone. Um, he wasn't arrogant. He, although he did get tired of the media after a while, asking him, as he would say, stupid questions. Um, uh, but his good looks, his, um, he was approachable. So I think it's a combination of, and he was willing to take risks that I think people appreciated and the public appreciated. And when he went out, especially at Hayward Field, when he went out to perform, he was doing it for his people because he liked putting on a show for them, not putting on a show because I'm arrogant, look at me, but putting on a great race that was entertaining for people to watch, and they loved to watch him.
Bree was known as a front runner. He liked to get to the head of the pack. He did not like to chase runners. Tell us about
Right.
that philosophy. Why?
Oh, because he felt like he was in control of the race when he was out in front, as opposed to letting other people control the race. He felt like he could when he was out front.
So
And
he finished.
there are pros and cons. You'll hear people's opinions about that.
Yeah,
So, is there a right? It was right for him.
yeah.
Is it right for everyone? No, but it was right for him.
It's like a racehorse, actually. Some racehorses are really good at leading from the front, and others.
Right.
There was a horse that I loved in the old days. It's called Nickawampus Leroy of all names,
I've
and
never heard of
that was
that
the horse.
horse.
That was the horse I used to bet on.
Oh, no
And yeah, that
kidding.
was harness racing actually. So it wasn't,
Oh, harness. Okay.
yeah, those horses aren't as famous as the others. But
Right.
I always used to bet on their horse because I just loved the thrill of the horse coming from behind. I was
And
always in
yeah,
last place, and then like you figured, your bet is gone, and then out of
and then
nowhere
it
it's
would,
just yeah.
yeah,
So
well, that wasn't Steve's style of running.
yeah. But I always thought that it was a lot harder, actually, in a way, to really run from the front because now you're like you got the other runners breathing on you, and you're their target, and that's
Well, and you're the one breaking
yeah,
wind.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So yeah, that's
Drafting, I guess, what people
drafting they
drafting
call it.
off of you. Yeah.
And so, do you feel that there was a particular X factor that Steve had that kind of separated from him from other runners?
Hmm. I'm not sure exactly what you're
Well,
asking.
some runners just want it more. Some runners just are willing to literally, I mean, do anything. If they had to do, some athletes would train 18 hours if they felt that that would make the difference. Um,
Well,
so that's kind of an X factor in one way. Personality is an X factor. There's,
sure.
yeah,
Um, I mean, those people who want to go off on their own and like you say, train for 18 hours, maybe they aren't the wisest people, and that's why you entrust a good coach. You look to your coach to direct you, and he did that. Both Dellinger and Bowerman were directing him. So, but he didn't go off and do the crazy stuff. Does that kind of answer your question?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he didn't go off and do things on his own because he knew better. That's, you know, that's arrogance.
yeah. That's definitely arrogance. And it's a mark of a champion, someone who allows themselves to take guidance, doesn't feel that they, have all the
Exactly.
answers.
Well,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So going back to he trusted his coaches that they would guide and lead him to become the best. And, that's what you do if you're smart.
what did Steve feel about finishing fourth in the 1972 Olympics, 5,000-meter run? He was
Right,
one place out of the bronze medal, and he actually was leading the race at one
right,
point.
right.
And then he was passed by the last runner down the stretch. Um, and so, what did he change in his training as a result of that race?
Well, I can't be specific because I don't know the answers to his training, actual training. People ask if he was disappointed. Well, of course he was
Yeah,
disappointed. He didn't go there just to win a medal. He went there to try and win the gold medal.
yeah.
So, yeah, it was hugely disappointing to him. And I'm sure it took time to analyze it and um, go through his feelings about that loss. He was very disappointed because for the people that supported him, because he felt that pressure of not letting those people down. So I know that that bothered him. But losing, when you're a competitive person, you don't like to lose.
Yeah.
So, would he have been
Especially when
happy?
you're not used to it.
Correct. That's a good point. That's true. So, yeah, was he happy about fourth place? No. Was he going to change that in 1976? Yes. But I can't be specific because I don't know exactly what he was doing on the track or other things that he would have needed to do to change the outcome in 76. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. But
And
was he working to do that? Absolutely.
we tragically lost Steve in 1975. Uh, Leading up to that, how confident was Steve in believing that he could get the gold medal in 1976?
Well, he didn't run around going, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win. That's not who he was.
Right.
So, I think it's all in your preparation, right?
Yeah.
And he was in the process of preparing to do better. Um, I'm sure he was once again shooting for the gold medal, not just a medal, but to win the gold, and nothing less. So I think he was probably doing everything he needed to do training wise.
Did Steve ever talk about what he wanted to do for the future after the 1976 Olympics?
Well, one thing that he did, actually, I'm trying to think of what year that was. Um, my parents, I was living in Eugene, and my parents were still alive and living in Coos Bay. And he took us. We met him at a restaurant. It wasn't a restaurant at the time, it was an empty um, uh, museum building that had been empty for a while. And he had already checked into and filled out paperwork to turn that into a restaurant, which became the Oregon Electric Station for years. It's no longer the Oregon Electric Station, but before Oregon Electric Station, it would have been the Sub 4 had Steve lived. He wanted to create a restaurant, an atmosphere of, running as well as maybe healthy food, um, not just junk bar food, but, healthy food. So that was in the works, early stages. That would have been one thing. He wouldn't have focused just on one thing, like sitting at a desk, for that wouldn't have been him. He would have been involved in many things. He was also part of wasn't so much a group back then, but uh, there are stories of him spitting up blood after a race in
Oof.
Eugene because during that time, field burning took place, lots of farming around Eugene. And the farmers, once the crops were done, would burn them. Well, it left the skies filled with smoke.
Ooh. You wouldn't
So,
think that in Oregon, you know.
well, they don't
New
do it
York City,
now.
maybe. LA.
Yeah, no, there's nothing to burn in New York City.
Yeah.
No. But he was involved with trying to come up with another way that wouldn't be so destructive to our atmosphere and make people sick. And actually, that what they did back then, one day caused a major accident on the freeway and killed several people because the winds shifted and the farmer was burning his fields right by the freeway, and the winds shifted and filled, you couldn't see. So cars piled into each other, and several, 8 or 9 people, I think it was, died that day. That practice is really no longer being, that's not what they do. I don't know what they do now, but that's not what they do. So Steve was involved in that cause. I think he'd be involved with several different causes to help people. And it would also have been in the running world because he was fighting the AAU at that. Remember, fighting the AAU because United States athletes were amateurs and they were competing against professional athletes that were getting paid. And that's all they do. But he still had to find other ways to work and make a living. And then you had to be careful about what you did, or you would get in trouble with the AAU. So, I think he would be involved in several different causes.
Yeah, well, if Steve was a baseball or football player, he'd be making $50 million a year with the
Well,
equivalent of
also
his
too,
talent.
if you think about it, he'd probably be, a Nike mucky muck, and he'd probably be making a lot of money.
Yeah, his name, his
Um,
they'd be Steve Prefontaine Nike shoes for sure,
well,
like the Air Jordans.
and well, they do have the pre-Montreal.
Yeah,
Um, I'm suggesting that he would have maybe some ownership in Nike as well as
yeah.
his voice on, you know, doing things better. So we don't know that. We'll never know.
Yeah, that's true. Well, in the
Yeah.
early 1970s, Steve was on so many different magazine covers.
Yeah.
He reached a very, very large level of running fame, almost
Correct.
more, perhaps more than any runner ever. How did he handle fame, and how did you feel about his fame?
Um, well, I always just looked at him as my brother. I mean,
There you
I
go.
remember, it's about the hazings I endured and when we were little kids, No, I never, it was hard for me to look at him as this, what do I want to say, iconic, famous person that he was. When people are all pulling at you too from all different directions, guess who gets the last little niblet? The family.
Yeah.
So, um, because I mean, I can't imagine with social media today, if that existed back then, what his life would have been like. Because it's crazy now with social media. Um, but go back to that question that you asked me. I diverted and
Well, I was curious how Steve handled fame and how you
handled the
handled his
fame.
fame. Yeah.
I think when people invade your privacy, I think that's a problem, and I know that that happened. And even back then, stalkers and not like
Wow.
today. Yeah, not like today. But that did happen, and he didn't like it. I mean, who likes their privacy invaded? But
Yeah.
you get crazy women and uh
Those sideburns, you know.
oh yeah. Yeah, well, that was popular back then.
Yeah.
Remember Elvis?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think most people don't like their privacy um, being attacked by people. So, yeah, he didn't like that.
Yeah. Understood. And so I understand that you have a journal. Can you tell us about that?
I do. So, I guess 2011, I put together what's called the prelogue, and I took it focuses mainly in the Coos Bay area, where it all started. And I took pictures of many of the places that he trained, and I interviewed some of his fellow runners and um, about, their feelings about Steve. I actually even took some of his right out of his own journals.
I love it.
So I didn't retype anything. I just photoed in his own handwriting um, what he did that day. I have several pages of his workouts, and I also have a few pages from his own diaries that I put in. You can see that that's in
Oh,
his own
yeah.
on
Love
his
it.
own
Very
handwriting.
authentic.
Very, yeah, yeah, it is authentic for sure. So it's still popular, and it's called the Prelogue to become a better runner.
We just
So
go on Amazon and pick up a copy.
actually go to my website. I
Your
don't sell it
website.
on Amazon, which is Prefontaine Productions, um, Prefontaine Productions, or just look my name up and might take you there. But no, it's there's a picture of the three Lobo, my brother's dog at the time, and
Oh,
that was the last Christmas we spent together.
oh, how sweet.
Um, So, yeah, I have some running companies that buy it for track camps in the summer, running camps in the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Got to get that over to my club, the New York Roadrunners Club.
Oh, just let me know who to talk to.
Yeah, I will actually. I'm sure that would be
Um,
very popular.
well, yay. Let's hope so. Oh, and let me also show you a couple of other things. So we have the pre-memorial run coming up in Coos Bay. It's a 10K run
Oh,
next weekend, not this weekend, next
oh,
weekend.
wow.
It didn't get started the year that Steve died. I think this is the 44th, although we did have to stop because of COVID and but I helped design this pre-medal.
Ooh, I love those medals.
Thank you.
That's a
So
nice one. That's
it
bigger than
is.
my New York City Marathon was when I ran in 1980.
Oh,
They
is
were
that
making it
right?
really small back then.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's hard to. Yeah. We've only done two medals. I think they're important, so it's convincing everyone else on the committee that they're important.
How many
But
runners are there in that race, approximately?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a combined. There's a 5K for high
Ah,
school kids, and there's a 2 mile walk, and then there's a 10K.
I
I
see.
want to say maybe 1100.
Okay.
But this year, do you know the name Jackie Hansen by any chance?
I know the name,
From
yes.
your era,
Yep.
a pioneer of women's running.
Yep.
She,
Absolutely.
marathoner. She won Boston, Honolulu,
Yep.
um, several other marathons. Set two world records. I met Jackie about 25 years ago, I guess it was 25 years in Eugene at
Yep.
a pre-classic pre-party, and and then when I joined Facebook several years ago, we became Facebook friends. And she reached out to me when I was posting about this being the 50th year of Steve's death. We're not celebrating at the run, we're honoring him.
Mhm.
And she said she lives in Southern California. She said she wanted to come to honor Steve.
Oh,
So
wow.
she's coming. And the mayor of Eugene, who was a um, University of Oregon runner, middle distance more. She's currently the mayor. She was a very good distance runner when she ran at Oregon. She's coming. And then a woman by the name of Joan Hanson, who ran in the same Olympic race that Mary Slaney ran in and
Mary
fell down.
Decker Slaney. Yep.
Yes. So Joan was in that race and she fell down too. She
Oh,
got up
really?
and finished the race in eighth place after falling down. She's coming too.
Oh, wow. I remember Mary Decker Slaney Fund. That's like one of the most famous,
Oh, it is
incidences
for
in
her.
Olympic
It's
history. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So all three of those women are
Oh,
coming to
wow.
honor Steve. Yeah, they're not
That's
running either. Although the mayor of Eugene, it depends on. I think she's had some health issues. Her name is 𝐒𝐭𝐞𝐯𝐞 and I think if she's healthy, she might run it or walk it. But otherwise, it's an up and down. It's not an easy 10K and lots of hills, mostly hills. And it's one of the runs that he would do in the mornings for just a morning shakeout.
wow. And so, in closing, what are you most
Yes.
proud of as it relates to Steve?
Oh, most proud of. Um, what he did to change the world. And he did it in a true, honest, pure way, because that's who he was. And yeah, it's it isn't just I don't focus on the races. I focus more on who he was, what kind of human being he was. And he was a good person.
Well, I can only tell you that in having run, back in the old days, 1970s, 80s, he had an influence on me. I think he was a very colorful personality.
Yeah.
And not only was he a champion, he was somebody to look up to. So
Hmm.
I think you should take the pride and joy of knowing that not only myself, but there are millions of others like me
Right.
who are inspired by Steve. And he was a true pioneer. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your information and coming on this show today. Really
Thank you,
appreciate that,
Eli.
Linda.
I enjoyed I don't enjoy all interviews, but I enjoyed our interview today, Eli. So thank you
Likewise, thank you so much.
for COVID.